Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today we are doing a very, very cool crime, mystery, noir,
Crime thriller, yeah.
whatever, comic book that is written by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips called Reckless. And it is a very cool idea that Sean Brubaker had. This series is the beginning of, I guess, what in novels would just be considered a novel series or whatever, where you have one book surrounding, or a bunch of books surrounding one character going through multiple things, much like Tom Clancy's, what's the Sum of All Fears books or whatever, the Patriot games.
Jack Ryan.
Yeah, Jack Ryan, there you go. And then you got the Jack Reacher series, then you got the Mission Impossible, they're all around Ethan Hunt. So you got like those ideas in movies and TV and books. And this is the first time that someone's actually done it on purpose in comics. Where he's like, I'm not putting out single issues, we're just doing single hardcovers that are coming out every 6 months, and they're going to be about the same guy, the same universe. The same.
That's cool. So that's never really been touched on like that?
No. He was like, why? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. All I can think of there, all the comics always come out in single issues, but that's really cool that they did that. I mean, obviously the pandemic helped.
That's what happened. Yeah, he was like, well, we can't put out single issues this year. So, like, what if we just put one out in April and then one out in September or whatever, and then that pays for as long as they sell, which he's built up his name enough. So if you don't know, we should also Ed Brubaker is half of the team that created the character Winter Soldier from Marvel, and he wrote that whole awesome run of, was it 25, 40 issues? I don't know. It's something like, it at least goes to 25 because that's when Captain America gets shot. But past that, I know he wrote at least for 40 issues or something. So he's got this giant run of Captain America that is what all the MCU movies are based on.
Yeah.
So all Civil War, Winter Soldier, the Captain America original, first movie.
And it is by far like the best Captain America run, I think. Like,
it is, yeah. At least in the last 30 years.
Yeah, 30
maybe?
years. Yeah.
So, and the art's really good in it too by Steve Epting. So definitely check that out if you wanted like a Marvel or more mainstream version of this guy's kind of spy thriller. That's what it is too. He writes spy thrillers, crime noir, pulp, action, that kind of stuff. So very specific. He's very, very good at it because he's the only guy that writes this many of them. So like this is his, I'm going to make my own franchise that's going to be my character, and it's going to be,
I'm going to actually make some money off of this if this does well.
Yeah, if they make a movie of this, God damn it, I'm getting paid for it because he didn't get anything from Winter Soldier or Marvel or on any of that stuff. So, except for he was in the movie, and he said he got more money for being in the movie, like the appearance or whatever in the background, than he got for creating Winter Soldier and the whole storyline for Civil War, and that. Yeah,
that's a shame.
Yes, it is. So, and then I don't even know if Steve Epting got anything, the artist. So, but anyway, they write stuff together still. They did another comic called Velvet that I did a review of this week on YouTube. So check that out if you are interested in that at all. That one's more like a spy thriller. But this one is more of like a crime noir, less spy. There's a little bit of government stuff in it, but he likes to kind of mix them all together, which is kind of fun. They're not just stuck to one genre of that specific subgenre or whatever. So, but this one takes place in the 80s, which is funny because he actually mentions at the end that it's much easier to write crime thrillers and noirs in the 80s because there's less technology and cameras and phones and shit. So,
yeah, that's one of the things I'll say going into this. Like, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it'll be like a thriller, and there's crime stuff that they're watching out on, and I forgot because, again, of technology and all of the current movies and things. It's like, wow, like I forgot how much drama and tension you build by not having cell phones, by not being able to have like instant access to things.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, this was like, it took me back and I was like, oh man, this is badass.
Yeah. That's exactly what I felt. I'm like, oh, if he could just call someone here in the middle of nowhere, then that takes away all the tension of being stuck in the middle of nowhere. you
Yeah.
know, like, or if, I need to find something out, well, I'll just Google it or whatever, you know?
Yeah, there's a stakeout that he does in this, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot. Like sitting and waiting and actually watching someone and not being able to just Google their history and what they do and like
Yeah.
the thing.
Or even have like I'm going to put a tracker on their car
Yeah.
and it's going to tell me everywhere they go from the GPS coordinates, you know, like.
Yeah, no, I actually have to sit here and like figure this out. Yeah, I know, that was wild.
So I appreciate that as well. It also puts you just in that mode, like you said. It fits really good, especially if you. I mean, I grew up before. We're the last generation here that grew up kind of before computers took over.
Yep.
So I still know what it was like to have to make a phone call on a public phone or things like that. So without being, I had a cell phone when I was 16. I think is when I got my first cell phone. Well, how old were you?
I was like 13, 14, I think.
Okay. Goddamn, rich kid.
No, not by any means.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, like, I mean, and mine was like that Nokia brick, and the most thing I did with it was play Snake on it.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I could call my mom to pick me up from the movies or whatever. Like, there was no reason for me to have it other than that. So nowadays, it's much more versatile and much more usable, but also it takes away all the mystery and suspense. Unless you're like the best writer ever and can, somehow manage to think of everything that could be thwarted in your mystery by technology.
He would have called, but his cell phone was miraculously dead.
Yeah.
And then
he had Verizon. That's why.
And then
That's what I would do.
He went to use the internet, and that too was also out.
Yes, he forgot to start. He just forgot to turn his phone off and on again for a month, and so nothing worked on it. That's what I.
He forgot to pay his internet bill that month.
God damn it! Yeah, that's what you'd have to do basically is just negate it like it is the 70s or something. And then of course the best thing would be like, oh, couldn't he just borrow someone's phone? I'm like, no. I don't know anybody that you go up to, but can I borrow your phone for a second?
And nowadays, I don't know.
No,
about that.
fuck off. So, because it's so sensitive, right? You got all your information on it. You think someone's trying to steal it because it costs $1,000 or whatever. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing to have crime stuff nowadays if you're gonna write nowadays. But yeah, anyway. So this one, like I said, is in the 80s and it takes place mostly in the late 70s, 80s. But the modern day for this is 1981. And it starts off in a very cool way. I like the way this book starts off. It's just he's got chapter titles. I don't know if the chapter titles are every 24 pages like a comic, or if they just happen whenever the chapter's over. But it seemed like it just flowed really well. They would just appear, and I'm like, okay, here's the new chapter. But this one was called "This Thing I Heard," and you just hear someone talking, and it's like, so there's this number I call. It's like 1-800 something, and you leave a message on the machine. And if you're in some kind of trouble, and that person, you can't go to the cops for it, and that person that hears the message decides it's like a worthy cause, well, maybe they'll help you solve your problem. And then you see the two guys are in a barn. They're like outside the barn. You heard the guy talking. Inside the barn, they cut to it, and there's a dude that looks like
Kevin.
I said Josh Brolin. You said Kevin Bacon.
Just like a grizzled Kevin Bacon, Josh Brolin from
No Country for Old Men.
Exactly.
Yeah, Llewellyn there. He fits in, and but it's like basically this is like the bad guy saying, so I heard about this guy, so I guess that's you, huh? And then you see another person in there that he was talking to, and he's like, you make a lot of money doing that? Or, you getting a shit ton of business? And the guy's like, not really. Like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And he's like, I have to kill you right now, right? And he just pulls out a machete, and he's like, holy shit. And then it just cuts away. It cuts away after the guy he's talking to goes, yeah, I get that. I'm the man. I'm right here with you, man. He's got an axe in his hand. He's covered in blood. So obviously, the dude that he's talking to in the barn is he's already been murdering people or whatever. So that's the introduction, and then we cut to. Turns out the guy with the axe that's already been murdering people. He's the main character, and his name is Ethan.
Ethan Reckless.
And we cut to 2 weeks earlier. I also like that his name is Reckless. His last name. It's like
it's
very 80s. It's very like 80s thing to do. Just fuck it. His last name's Reckless.
Yeah.
So it's like, might as well. But it's not a believable last name at all. But just it's the series. We're gonna call the series Reckless, and that makes sense that that's his last name or whatever. So, but yeah, we're in Los Angeles, 1981, and this guy lives in an old theater called the El Ricardo, and he's just like dead inside. He's like a private eye for only cases he wants to take that seem interesting. He doesn't have to pay rent or anything on this theater that he lives in because someone gave it to him, gifted it, like a client gifted it to him as payment. So he just has this theater that he's made into like a house, but he also just watches old movies in it and stuff. He's got an assistant named Anna, and she's the one who takes all the messages and then says, this came in, that came in. But as you can imagine, like, it's just a phone number that travels around. There's no marketing for it. So the phone calls don't come that often or whatever.
No.
So she's telling him, hey, can you pay attention? I have to leave soon. There's this, these are like a car repo one. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. That's some bullshit.
Yeah, I don't like car people.
And she's like, but it's $2,000 to like pick up a car. And he's like, well, I don't want to do it. And then she goes through a couple other things, and then and she's like, well, you got to pay my rent or like my salary. So like, if you could fucking do that,
how about you do a job?
We're getting kind of dry or whatever. So he's like, all right, are we that low? She's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, there's one more thing. And there was one person that called, and she said she possibly knew you, and that you should meet at this hotel at this time, and that you would know what that meant or whatever. And she's like, I don't know if you want. He's like, yes, I'll do that or whatever. So he obviously knew what that hotel meant and everything and all that. So I will say, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie that they're watching. It's called The Night of the Stalker, I believe. But it is, or The Night of the Hunter. That's what it's called. It is the movie where the love and hate on the knuckles is from.
Oh, cool.
It's a fucking awesome movie. It's about a serial killer who poses as like a preacher and goes to like towns and murders kids and shit. So
dang.
It's super fucked up, but it's like an old movie from like the 40s. It's black and white or whatever. So it's super cool. Anybody who's interested in kind of interesting, cool movies that you might have missed, check out Night of the Hunter. But yeah, they reference it all the time, like The Simpsons and stuff. Like Sideshow Bob has love and hate on his knuckles or whatever. And
Die Bar Die.
Yeah. So
nice.
So yeah, that's what that's referencing. But that's the movie he's watching. I just wanted to mention that because that's one of my. We watched it once, and I was like, "This is a fucking awesome movie. Why does no one talk about this movie?"
That's cool. We should do the movie night one night. I had no idea.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Anyway, he does decide to go see this lady, and he's like, "Okay." So we see the next chapter is called "Which Way the Wind Blows," and we see he meets up with her. And he basically gives, before he meets up with her, to us, he gives what happened, like generally a little bit of what's going on. And so we get a little history from Ethan. He's like, so.
It was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s, the roaring 70s or whatever. But basically he used to work for the FBI as like an undercover agent. He got in, they say later, but he got in because his dad was in Naval Special or Intelligence or whatever.
I think so.
Naval Intelligence. And like he didn't want to go to Vietnam, so his dad's like, well, I'll get you a job at the FBI Academy, or I'll get you a job at the FBI if you pass all this stuff or whatever. So he did that, and so he got in the FBI, not because he wanted to be in the FBI, but because he didn't want to go to Vietnam. And so then he ended up having to be undercover for all these like hippies and other protests, like all the bombings and stuff that happened with like the Weathermen Underground.
Weather Underground.
The Weathermen and then the Weather Underground. There's two separate groups. Yeah. But there's a lot of people protesting back then. A lot of, we'll call it domestic terrorist groups that are like, back then they were the left-wing terrorist groups that the government was trying to shut down and stuff. So they used him. They were like, hey, you go to college because you're the right age. You tell us, what are these groups? Who's in charge? What's going on? What do they want? What's their motivation? And apparently one of them, the one he was in, was one that liked to set off bombs a lot. And so that's what he was trying to get those people. And apparently he actually got blowed up. And that's what ended up fucking up, he says, his memory. So he's got really bad memory about that time, specifically the day that the bomb went off, and he's a little fuzzy on some other things around his life. And then two, he has like no emotion. So like,
yeah, stone cold.
He must have got like a concussion and it just fucked with like his frontal lobe or something, because he doesn't have any. Yeah, like he's like, I don't feel anything, and it's weird because like I don't have any emotion except anger sometimes, but other than that, like, I can pretty much just not feel anything and it's fine or whatever, So he's so numb, he's used to that kind of thing. But he's like going back and remembering their affair basically. So what it was he met this girl named Rainey Livingston in college, and she would hold up a sign, Nixon is a fascist or whatever, and they would picket and all that stuff and protest, and also like make love and stuff. And it turns out her brother Anton was the leader of this group, and he was kind of a little bit more hardcore than just protesting. So he was like, let's set bombs and blow shit up and, cause some real revolution or whatever. And basically him and Rainey just ended up kind of being like, we don't want to do that. We'd rather just leave this whole system and go be living on a beach somewhere.
Go be together.
Yeah, live on like our own hippie commune where she grows vegetables. I'm on a beach in the day surfing all day, and then I come home and we make love and fucking look at the stars or whatever. And so, like that's what they had the idea of, but that's not how it ended. Like we said, it ended with the bomb exploding on accident in the house that they were in, and basically either people dying or everybody being on like wanted lists and stuff, and then him just washing back into the FBI or whatever. So, and he even says after that, he was never the same because he was never a company man in the first place with the FBI. Yeah. And then even after this, he got more disillusioned because it's like, I'm hanging out with these groups. They're making some good points. Also, I'm seeing like good men like Martin Luther King get like assassinated and shit for things that I'm like literally looking into with these other groups. So it's kind of like he's disillusioned by the FBI and the government in general anyway. So that's how he ended up just falling out of this. And then he says, oh yeah, and that's how I like, after 10 years, so I helped someone out. They told someone else that I helped them out. Then that's how this number got around. And then I ended up just kind of being a personal PI for some cases for some people. So he meets her right away. She knows him as Donovan Rush, which was his undercover name. So she's like, oh my gosh, Donnie, how are you? And they kind of just fall right into their pattern of
kind of right back where they were
being together. Yeah, it's been 10 years, but you know what? They still kind of like each other a lot. They're still being like standoffish, obviously, but he's just basically like, what happened to you kind of thing, and how did you find me? And she kind of tells her history about how she, was going around and was with a couple different people and groups, and then she heard about his number from someone else, and she was like, what's this guy look like? Because the way that they described the person sounded a lot like him. And then she called him just assuming. But basically what happened is she needs his help because someone is after her because she says it's like she wants his help because she knows someone has money of hers. And
from a bank robbery.
From a bank robbery that they did after
$100,000.
Yeah, her cut was $100,000.
Yeah.
And basically they all robbed this bank with a group that she was in after the bombing and everything with her brother. It's like a group she went in afterwards. They robbed a bank, hid the money. Then when she went to go collect it, the guy whose name is Wilder was like, sorry, money's gone. Rats ate it, and the weather got to it. And then she's like, no, it didn't, because he has a giant compound and everything. So she's like, I want my money. Can you find it for me, or can you get it for me? And he's like, yeah, I can do that. Why do you want it, basically? Is it just like snort it up your nose or whatever? She's like, no, I want to go move away to like Costa Rica or whatever. So she's trying to get out of the country, and she just reminds him, like we said, I want to live on a beach for the rest of my life and not deal with that. So he buys it, and I'll say he buys it because it's a little too good to be true, And he's a little too easily conned in this one, we'll say, because
I feel like it's a
little too personal.
Love interest,
he's a little too personal. He still has feelings for her.
It's like, I guess, Rainey, if that's what you say, okay.
Right. And as the reader, I don't know if you felt this the first time I read it. I didn't feel that at all. I didn't feel like he was being conned. I thought she was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So
no, I thought she was telling the truth too.
Okay, so
we'll get more into it.
We'll get more into it later on. But this whole thing is a big con, as there always is with crime thrillers and stuff. And
and I mean, we thought this is way more twists than I thought there would be too. Like,
yes,
I expected like one maybe, but we'll get into it.
There's some good stuff. For sure. So basically, but she's as far as he knows, she's on the up and up. Just wants this to get her money and get out of here. And she's like, she also says, which I think is funny. She's like, I ended up becoming those like suburban moms I always hated, and I never wanted to do. And it was like, you went from like a revolutionary in college to like having to be undercover, which meant that you're like always just pretending to be, someone you're not, which ends up being the people you hate or whatever. So I end up hanging out with these moms and shit that I don't give a fuck about. And so anyway, she gives him a one lead that's basically like, this guy says he knows how to get to Walker or whatever. So he goes to visit that guy, who's like a mechanic. I don't remember what his name is, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, he works at this place called Sweeney's Mechanics, and she's like, "Hey," or I'm sorry,
He's like, "Hey."
Ethan's like, "Hey," he just shows up at this dude's work the next day, and is like, "Guess what? I want to know like how where that money is." Apparently, he was one of the guys who was in on the bank robbery as well, and he was the guy who told her, "Yeah, your money's gone," because Wilder took it, but he wasn't Wilder, so. Yeah. This guy just had to live with it. His money probably got stolen too, if I had to guess, because he's working at a garage. So Ethan's like, "Hey, where's this guy Wilder? I want an address." And the guy's like, "Fuck you, I'm not telling you anything." And then Ethan just has to threaten a little bit, some violence. He picks up a wrench. I will say it's a wrench that probably is not going to be in a garage. It's like a plumbing wrench, but whatever. They possibly
maybe they had some plumbing issues.
Yeah, maybe they had some plumbing issues in the garage. I don't know. But it's like a pipe wrench, not a car wrench. But either way, he could have picked up a tire iron. That would have looked better. But he threatens to beat the shit out of the guy, or tell the police that, hey, one of those people you're looking for the bank robbers is here. So the guy's like, "Fuck you, whatever. I will tell you what I know, but it's not that big of a deal." So he tells Ethan, the person, I don't know where to find Wilder, but someone who does is this lady named June. She works at a diner. You might be able to get the information from her.
Yeah, go talk to her.
Yeah. So he starts staking out this lady at the diner, and in the meantime, he calls Rainey from a payphone because she's staying at his place, or I think she's staying at a hotel. She's staying at a hotel. She's like, he calls her. He's like, "Is everything okay?" She's like, "No, like someone's been here," and he's like, "I just went to that dude's place a couple hours ago. Where it was, it's not enough for him to get his buddies, drive all the way down to L.A., smash your windows or whatever." So basically, someone broke into her room, messed stuff up, and then broke a window or the mirror in the restroom saying "stop" on it. Left a message for her. So he's like, "How could that happen? There's no way that could happen." So he's like, "Wow, someone else is into this then. Like someone else knows. Like that means he's been called. Wilder's been called and probably on the run now. So great. Hopefully, he's not, but the only lead I have will probably lead me to nothing." So because of that, he just tells her, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to ditch this lead real quick, and I'll meet you down at my theater in Ricardo where I live, or the El Ricardo where I live." And he gives her his address and all this stuff. So he's giving her personal information now and all this stuff. He's like, "It was a mistake then, but I didn't know."
I do like that he calls Anne at least to let her know, and he's like, "Hey, we got somebody's gonna be staying with." She's like, "What are you talking about? Like that's like your address. That's a main rule of yours is like none of your clients know where you live."
Yeah, and so he fucks it up because of his attachment to her.
Yeah.
So she's mad when he gets there, and Rainey's already there, but Anna's like, "What the fuck? You're not supposed to do this." And he's like, "Look," and she's also like, "Was she at least paying us?" And he's like, "No," but also just do this, and I'll do the car job. All right, I'll do the one where I'm going to repo a car, and you'll get your money. She's like, "Okay." So she's staying there, and he kind of just tells her about like what happened, like I said, with him how he got the movie theater and all that. But then we get like a little bit of backstory of what happened in between when he was in the hospital after the explosion and stuff. And it's something that really it just kind of gives more stuff about him and why he left the FBI and everything. Yeah. And so, but then they have this like nice moment where he kind of says like, "I'm sorry for everything." He couldn't tell her that he's in the FBI, but he just tells her like, "I'm sorry for what happened. It's not, it wasn't your fault what happened, but like, it was bad that it went down like that. And I'm sorry I never checked on you and stuff." So basically they have like a heart to heart. And then she uses the phone to make a call real quick. And then she went down to her car to move it. And then she opens her car as he's standing there, like looking at her, being like, "Man, maybe this could go somewhere." And her car blows up.
Boom. Yeah. I know. I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah. I was wondering, because I could tell something was going to happen because the way they were, like the panels were laid out, like this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this.
I didn't see the car exploding.
Yeah. I didn't know what exactly was going to happen, but that was interesting. So the car explodes. He sees his, this old lover / client now blow up and die in the car in front of him, right outside of his movie theater.
Yeah, talk about a splash page. This is really pretty.
Yeah, really good colors and everything. Yeah, I mean, we didn't mention the art, but the art is fantastic by Sean Phillips.
Oh yeah,
It's always good. He does all of these with Brubaker, specifically like all these image books, like Criminal and stuff. He does all these crime books with him. So really good art. They work really good as a team. So, but yeah, basically he gets knocked out from the blast, then he comes to, and then right away, he's like, it took him longer than I thought. And then he gets out of the hospital, and the FBI is already waiting for there. He's like, where's my? And then he's like, hey, Ethan.
Hey, Ethan.
We got a car for you. So
Come and get in the car with me. We need to talk.
he gets called in by his old agent, who's named Frank. His old was it handler?
I guess
they call
handler
him.
or partner. Yeah.
It's the guy that knew he was in undercover. It's kind of this reminded me a little bit just because of the undercover stuff of what's that movie with you fucking fireman movie with the Boston.
Oh yeah, The Departed.
The Departed.
Yes, very much.
Because
So.
everybody's undercover and who knows who's undercover and all that stuff. So not quite as deep as that one where it's like undercover. But like this one is like, okay, so Frank knew he was undercover.
Yeah.
And he always had to clean up this kid's messes, and it always seemed like the bureau was basically like, we fucking think you're a traitor basically, because we think you've turned to be one of these revolutionaries, but you got blown up in a mission, so we have to like treat you like a hero. But basically, they're just waiting for him to wash out, and after they did that, he never heard from Frank again, and until now. So now he's like, oh, they know who Rainey is. Because she was undercover too. She was on the run. So they found out from her death in this bomb who Rainey was and that he was talking to her. So they're like, hey, were you talking to her the whole fucking time or just this last couple weeks or whatever?
And apparently this is a theme with him because that's one thing Frank says is like, how come every time, like, you're the only one who sees what happens? So
yeah.
Apparently this is a running theme with him.
Yeah. So whether that be in stuff that's happened in between, or stuff that happened when he was undercover or whatever. But it seemed like, yeah, Frank still harbors grudges about shit. And so they kind of talk about what happened in the FBI and stuff and how basically it's Frank's fault that they didn't come in sooner before that bomb and arrest everybody. It was because Frank wanted to link everything to the Black Panthers. Instead of just taking this one group down, they wanted to take a bunch of people down or whatever. And then the best thing about this was, and he's like, you know what? I don't fucking trust you, Frank. Because Frank's like, what? What's so bad about me? And he's like, I don't trust you. You know why? Because the whole time I've been talking, you drove me back to my house, a house that was supposed to be secret that no one knew about, and you didn't ask for any direction. So you've obviously been keeping tabs on me since I left or whatever, So
you can fuck right off.
Yes, you can fuck off. Leave me alone. Tell the FBI that I don't want any of this. So the interesting thing is now we got Ethan, he's basically spinning. He's like, the girl I kind of was in love with, my first love. Also, he says he lost his virginity to her and did acid with her the first night they like met or whatever. Yeah. Because he was a virgin when he went into the FBI or whatever. So like all these firsts happened on the first night they met. Definitely sinking in like this is his first love. They broke, the bomb happened and they broke up because of that. And so he's kind of spiraling like, I need to get I'm just angry now. I want to get revenge. Who is this fucking Wilder that blew her up? Because he thinks Wilder, was the one who was behind the bomb. And so he goes now back to the one lead he had, which was the lady of the diner. So he starts following her at the diner just for like 4 days. He just comes in every day, get breakfast and look at her and just see what's going on and then follow her on the outside. And it turns out he finds out she is dealing drugs, like basically meth to, or cocaine. I think it's coke. Cocaine to truck drivers who stop at the diner. And then he's like, hopefully that's enough to scare her into giving me Wilder's information. And I think she's a native person because it's on it's near an Indian reservation. So he's like, hey, I know what you're doing. And she's like, fuck you, white man. Like,
she's like, you think you're going to scare me, white man? I've been having white men yell at me my entire life.
Yeah, so fuck you. I'm like, you're not going to scare me. I'm like a badass native bitch. So like, you can't do anything to me. And she tells him to fuck off. She's like, great. Like, that's it. Like, that was my leverage. So then he's like, I'll just take a bath. Now she's already called Wilder again if he was not gone already, and now he's definitely gone because I just alerted that I'm really looking for him now. I confronted her about it. So when he gets out of the bath, I thought this was like the Big Lebowski. He's like, "Where's the money, Lebowski?" Like, he's like, "What are you talking about, man?" But basically, he gets out. He's only in a towel. He comes into his room, and there's two guys just waiting for him. And he just like, "Fuck!" And he just throws his towel at one of the guy's face and just starts punching and throwing blows at them. And he's like, the best thing is he's like, "It doesn't hurt. I mean, it does hurt, but I don't care." Like, he doesn't. He's just so mad, and he's so like apathetic to everything that he doesn't care that he's getting beat up. All he really cares about is this fight actually means good thing for him. It means, one, he's got someone to follow now. These two guys, when he gets back up, they don't kill him, they just beat him up, and I think he plays maybe a little like or whatever. And so they're like, "Yeah, we got you good.
Better not see you in town anymore."
Yeah, you get out of here. And so he's like, "I got someone to follow," and also that means that Wilder didn't run. That means that I'm supposed to be scared away by these guys, not follow them. So basically, he tracks these guys all the way back to some land where Wilder has like an airstrip, and he hikes out at the airstrip and just looks at what's going on. Basically, what's going on is this is Wilder's drug landing strip. He gets all his drugs, then they take it to his house or whatever and cut it and all this stuff, and they sell it. So he goes to the airfield after he waits till everybody's gone because everybody shows up with guns and shit because it's obviously a drug deal. So, the money is there. There's money and drugs being exchanged at this place. All the guns leave except one guy who's there with the plane while it's refueling, and he basically goes up to that dude, punches him in the face. Not the refueling guy, but the guy with the gun, and then ties up the plane guy and says like, "What's going on with Wilder? Where is he at?" or whatever. So then we cut to, and this was cool. It just says Wilder's point of view, and he's just sitting. He's reading a book about Ted Bundy, and he's like, "Man, this guy's a shitty man." Basically, like he's such a bitch. He'll like kill women, and he has to trick people into doing it and stuff. Like a real man fights someone face to face, one on one, hand to hand or whatever. That's like what he's thinking in his head. Then he hears, "We got a problem at the airfield." He gets a phone call. And then he looks out the window and sees smoke. He's like, "Fuck, what is this?" And he's thinking like, "Oh, he's getting hit by all these people."
Yeah.
And it said like, "Oh, he's been on coke for days." So at first he didn't realize it, but then he remembered. There was someone asking questions at the diner, and he's like, "Oh, shit, it's that guy. It's not one of my enemies. It's not the Mexicans. It's not the other gangs. It's this guy who was looking for someone." Yeah, so we don't know who they are, but I'm coming down there right now. And I love this. He puts on his shit kicker boots, and then he puts on his mirrored sunglasses because it's the 80s, and he goes down to kick some ass. And so as he's walking down from his house to the airport, or the little airstrip, he just sees all of his guys like slowly scattered everywhere. One guy is stabbed, the other guys are like shot, but then he realizes no one's dead. Like, if no one's dead, then this guy's like
has some compassion,
or he just doesn't want to murder everybody.
Yeah.
He's a little different. So then he realizes who this is because Rainey had told him Wilder also heard the story about the guy who helps people who call them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, "Holy shit!" And that's when I knew. And then he's like, "There's a number that you call." And that's where we end up right back at the beginning of the story. This was the first page we saw where he's talking outside the barn. And then I like this. They just cut to, because we already heard that scene, the fighting.
The fight.
So we get the big fight we got Ethan with an axe, like a hatchet, and then we got Wilder with a machete.
Yeah.
And like we said, Ethan's already been fighting, so he's all bloody and shit.
Machete knife fight, or machete axe fight.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty awesome fight. And the best thing is, like, Ethan's like, most people are scared of blades. And we're reading his narration over this fight. So he's like, most people are scared of blades, but since I don't give a fuck, like, I'll just take a hit to get a better hit. So he lets the machete hit him in the arm, like in the forearm, cut pretty deep, but that allows him to get close enough to cut Wilder in the stomach with the axe and basically disembowels him.
Yeah.
And then while Wilder's like sitting there dying, he's like, "Who told you about my phone number?" And he's like, "What?" And then he's like, "You heard about me. How did you hear about me?" And he's like, "Some chick in Berkeley told me about her." And he's like, "But wait, you knew Rainey, right?" And he's like, "Rainey, what does she have to do with this?" And he's like, you killed her. He's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, what the fuck? Like, I thought you killed Rainey. He's like, why would I do that? Why? I love her. Or whatever. Like, I did some, I was mad at her, but I wouldn't kill her. Yeah. So basically we get revealed that like this guy didn't kill her. So who killed her? We don't know. And so then the best thing is he's like, but man, you just stepped in some shit. Maybe it was Craven. And he's like, who's Craven? He's like, the pilot. Well, who's that? Well, the pilot named Craven works for the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out the CIA, and we might know this as a little thing called the Iran Contra scandal, but basically this is one side of it. The CIA is buying drugs from Nicaragua to fund the revolution against the communist dictator there or whatever that they want to overthrow.
Yeah.
And they're giving money to the rebels who are making cocaine. So they buy cocaine, then they sell it to this guy up in America, and Wilder, and he then sends it down to be used and sell to people who are then arrested in the drug war. So it's a big circle of government conspiracy that was originally thought to be crazy and then was found out to be 100% true. So, so there's a lot of weird shit with this, but I liked how he tied that into this.
So what he's saying here is sometimes those conspiracy theories are true. You should look into them, read them all, know them all.
Look into them, people. Look into it.
We're here delivering the truth to your ears.
Operation Paper Cut, right? Paperclip, not paper. I don't know what they're called. they're turning the frogs gay. Anyway, but yeah. So anyway, he just reveals like, oh shit, you just stepped into a pile because the CIA. I'm working with the CIA, and also Rainey knew that too, and so he's left with that knowledge. He's like, oh man. So then he's putting pieces together. He's like, if it wasn't Wilder, then it had to be the CIA that killed her, because she was going to rat out about this conspiracy, right? This them selling drugs to American people, which causes that epidemic of the drug trade and everything in the 80s. So he's like, holy shit, the CIA is behind the murder. And he goes to Frank because he's like, Frank's my FBI guy. Maybe he can help me with this. Yeah. And he runs. He's like, it's like 2 a.m. He's like, Frank, wake up! And he's like banging on the door. Once again, there's no call. There's no cell phones or anything. So he's banging on the door. He's like, Jesus, what's going on? He's like, you know what time it is? And he's like, holy shit, you're covered in blood. His like arm's still bleeding from the machete fight, even though he wrapped it and everything. And he's like, wake up! Like it's like the CIA. It's them. They tried to kill her. And he's like, no, dude, Ethan, I've been trying to call you for like an hour, or like no, 2 hours. He said he's trying to call you for hours. We found the killer.
Yeah,
he's in the hospital.
Caught the killer.
We know who it is. It was her brother, Anton. And it's like, wait, what?
What?
And it's like the CIA don't even think about that. Like, but the thing I like about this is that just puts in a seed for future books. We can recall the CIA line and have it be in a future story, which I liked a lot. There's a lot of little seeds they sprinkled in this that were like, oh, that's going to be potentially a future story. That's really cool. So turns out Anton, her brother, is the killer. They see that at least he's arrested for that. So then we see it says all the answers you didn't want to hear is the name of this chapter, and Anton is in prison or in jail, like kind of like an interrogation room, and he's meeting with Ethan now, and basically he's like, I thought you were gonna kill me, Ethan, when you saw me because of everything that happened. And he's like, well, I thought about it, but then you know what? I wanted to get some answers, and I'd calmed down since I was in the hospital for my arm wound and all that shit for 2 weeks. So now it's been a while. I'm calm. So thanks. And he's like, basically, like, what do you want to know? And so we actually find out this is what happened. He didn't kill his sister. Ethan actually pieced it together when he calmed down because he looked at her purse and he found out Rainey had the plan to kill herself because she was had like 3 months to live.
Yep, because she has cancer.
Yeah, she has like terminal 3 months to live cancer. So she was like, fuck it, I'm going to get back at the 2 guys who fucked me over in my life, Ethan and Wilder. And so she found him and made up this story about the bank robbery, or maybe it wasn't made up, but it was, believable enough for him. And so, and basically she was going to have her brother kill her like that, which would send him to Wilder and have them fight each other, which is what happened, except she had actually called it off because of their ended up having a touching relationship. She had actually called it off. That was the phone call she made right before she went down to be like, never mind.
Yeah, don't worry about
But
that.
apparently she didn't put two and two together where you can't just plant a bomb in 5 seconds. So he had already put the bomb in the car ready to go. So she went down to move the car and it blew up. So, but she was going to die in 3 months anyway, so she probably wouldn't have cared. But it wasn't more to like stop her from getting killed. It was more of her saving Ethan from the trouble of, killing, being potentially killed and being involved in this whole mess. So that's what we find out is Anton wasn't the real killer. She was technically the mastermind behind all this, and it was to get back at him. And then we also find out that she actually knew he was in the FBI because he doesn't remember that night. But Anton's like, don't you remember what happened? He's like, no. And he's like, the bomb went off and like, my memory's fucked up. He's like, well, Anton's like, well, you literally were like, hey, I'm in the FBI, Rainey. Don't go to the house. I'm going to arrest your brother. Then she called the house, which is what made us antsy, which triggered the bomb because I did, the guy that was building the bomb was going to dismantle it and he did something wrong. And then that set off the bomb while you were outside talking to me, with a gun to my head saying freeze or whatever. And so that's what set off the bomb. And the bomb wouldn't have gone off. Rainey knew that you were a cop because you told her. So she was playing along with this story that he was going with earlier as well. So basically she was acting, he was acting, but at the end she did not want him.
Yeah.
She saw that he had changed, that he was repentful of stuff, had regrets.
She was ready to call it off.
Yeah, she was ready to call it off, but it didn't end up that way. So that's what we find out, and basically he's just like, and that's what happened. So I was left with, I basically killed my girlfriend, or the first love of my life. I got into a bunch of shit that I didn't need to get into. He murdered Wilder, which is a drug lord. So I'm sure maybe there are other people who are above him.
Oh, this will come back to haunt him.
Yes,
sure.
I'm sure this is going to come back to haunt him, at least the CIA part. But if not, there's going to be other drug dealers that take over that lane, or people who maybe were above Wilder in that chain, like maybe the people from Mexico that sold to him, or what. It's just like crazier shit can happen from that. And so he's like, I just had to go surfing for like 4 weeks, took a bit off. And by the time I was out of that, I was back to my like nullified feeling self, where like he doesn't feel anything. He's just apathetic towards everything. And then everything kind of went back to normal. And he was like, you know what? It doesn't, I barely remember like even what she felt like or sounded like anymore because he's just put it back and his memory's so fuzzy on things. He's like, it's all that shit when you were young and you just push it in the back basically. So, and he's like, I guess I'm sorry about everything that happened, but it doesn't fucking matter because it's already happened. So, and that's how it leaves. You just leave it with him. He fucked up everything because he got too involved with this girl. He broke all his rules and stuff. So
we'll see what the future holds.
But that makes sense because he's reckless.
And
so yeah. John, what did you think about Reckless?
I really liked it a lot. Like you said, taking me back to like a time where you don't get that instant gratification of finding out the information, and so you really it really put you in that suspenseness of it, and I really like that because it had been a while since I had read or seen anything like that. So that was really cool. The art is great. The machete axe fight was so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I want to see it. I want to see that live action too.
Oh yeah, I want to see this whole thing be like a TV series or whatever. Maybe when it gets like 10 books in, it'll be like popular enough to like make it a series or whatever. But
I mean, I really enjoyed it. Apparently Ed Brubaker fucking makes him. He's a damn good writer.
Kicking ass.
Yeah.
I actually went and I've been slowly buying all his books and reading them. So I'm kind of like, we will probably be reading more of these crime books by him. There's the one I was talking about, the spy thriller named Velvet. That's by him and Steve Epting, the guy that did the art for the Winter Soldier Captain America run. That book is fucking awesome, and it's only 17 issues long. It's a whole story complete.
Nice.
So I'm like, we might just read that one at some point too. It was such a good story. I read it in like an hour. It was 17 issues.
Oh, nice. It's not even really. It didn't even feel that long.
It doesn't feel that long, but it's definitely like a full crazy spy story that you're like, whoa, there's all these twists and turns and all this shit. But yeah, it was really good. And then the same with this is at the back of this book, they even say the next Reckless book is coming out in 6 months, and it's called Friend of the Devil. I just read that one. It was fucking awesome. It's all like satanic panic, Hollywood, fucked up Hollywood stuff with the Satan stuff and everything. It's good stuff. It's good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. So I just want to keep these going. We'll probably do if once we catch up on their order, like once they're like, oh, in 6 months the next one's gonna come out. We'll do them as they come out. But we'll pepper these ones in every now and then until we catch up, which is only 3 books. So
Yeah.
I think basically in 6 months, the newest one just came out 2 weeks ago. So
Nice.
in 6 months we'll do another one.
I'm down with that. I actually just listened to a whole documentary on the Satanic Panic because I didn't know I didn't know the full extent.
I
of
knew.
it, and I was like, holy crap.
Oh, I knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, so fun stuff. John, what would you give this book?
I was great, man. Solid story, fantastic art. It makes me excited for more. This definitely, if you know somebody who's like, oh yeah, I like crime thrillers, I like drama like that, or just, I mean,
yeah, and it's a one-off story
Yeah.
too. Like it's its own story. You don't need to know anything else. Also, I think all of these books are supposed to be able, like any of those series
you
books,
could just pick them up.
you pick them up, any of them, and then start from the beginning if you wanted to. So like. That's a good thing about these kind of things. You can pick up any of them, and they give you enough about the character and stuff so that you don't have to know everything before, which is one of the downsides of comic books.
Yeah.
Is, like what we've said with DC or even Marvel and stuff on some.
Oh yeah, I mean, if
Wait,
you don't
what's
know
the
the last,
continuity of 40 years ago?
yeah, if you don't know the last like 5 crises that took place over 40 years,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're not holding your hand.
Yeah, so this one you don't need to. It doesn't hold your hand, but you don't need to hold your hand because we're doing a good job of making them individual stories for this one character. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
8.
You give
It
an
gets
8?
an 8, solid 8 for me, man. It's a
Sweet.
good-
Yes. I'm going to give this a solid 8 as well. I just think it was a really good introduction to the character.
Yeah.
And it's good because it explains why his name is Reckless too, because he is so reckless with things. I also liked just the double twist on, actually there's 3 twists, right? Because we thought it was Wilder, then he thought it was the CIA, then it was the brother, and then it ended up being her. So it was like 4 twists altogether that happened, and they all made sense, and they all weren't convoluted or anything either. It was just him making assumptions that were wrong.
Yeah.
But the assumptions made sense when he made them to you as the reader, kind of thing. So, and it led you to think, oh yeah, that makes sense, and then that doesn't.
I didn't see her blowing up at first. I mean, I didn't see that. I know you said there was a little bit of maybe innuendo with that, but right. I didn't. I was reading.
Oh, it was like literally the page before. So if you didn't catch
I didn't catch that event, and then I turned the page and I'm like, holy fuck, that car just blew up.
Yeah, and maybe it was because well, I don't want to spoil Veronica Mars season 4, but in Veronica Mars season 4, some things happen that are similar to this.
Okay.
So because of that, I was like, I'm aware of when people try to do things like that. So, yeah, I just thought this was great. It's such a fun, like, if you just want to read a good story, it's not like life changing or anything, but it's just like solid character, solid story, fun. Great Christmas present. These are all still available on hardcover and everything. So if you know someone who's interested who likes maybe mystery thrillers, who wants to get into comics or is interested in potentially reading comics, check it out. And I should say these are mature. Like there's nudity and violence and stuff like that. But
oh yeah, he does stuff that they say Batman is not willing to do. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it was cool.
Yeah. So. You give it an 8. I give it an 8. What are we reading next week, John?
What are we reading next week? Are we gonna do another Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb?
Yeah, I think we're gonna dip our toe into the Marvel
land
of the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale again. We're gonna do Grey Hulk. It's spelled. We just found this out.
Yeah.
It's spelled Gray.
Yeah, don't think you're going crazy if you try to look up this comic because it's Gray.
Yeah, I got confused and I thought I was going crazy.
I'm sure we'll learn why it's like that. But
yes.
But yeah, I'm totally down. I'm more of a Marvel guy, so I'm excited to dip into these because I think I've read Captain America White because when I was reading comics, like I was picking up pretty much everything Captain America during that time. I just don't recall.
I haven't read any of these ones.
But I mean, I'm excited to go back to it because like you said, it's kind of been like. Every time we see their stuff together, it's like, oh man, this is really solid. This is really good.
They have moved up as a creative team to like number 2 or whatever. Like they're really close to being like, if I see a book by them, I will definitely just pick it up because they're fucking great together. And so, I mean, like when we read X-Men or the Wolverine Gambit, I went and found the hardcover of that. It's at a fucking print. I had to go like search all over the place to find it because I was like, this is so fun. It's such a good like early. It's nice because it's like early. It's like you get to see their relationship blossom as a creative team or whatever, So like you get to see them working together, and then you read Long Halloween, you're like, oh man, this is fucking awesome, you know. So like all that stuff, and also those are coming out now in deluxe version. You get Long Halloween's coming out right now. It's out right now as the deluxe version, so it's like oversized hardcover. It's not the absolute, so it's affordable. It's like $35 or whatever.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a nice version of that book. And then they're putting out all the ones. So Dark Victory is going to be in January, I think. And then they're doing Selena's. It's either Selena's Big Score or When in Rome. I think it's When in Rome.
Okay.
Is the one that they did, and that's also in the same universe. So it's like a Catwoman story in that same universe.
Nice.
So, very cool stuff from them. So that's why we're trying to we'll spread them out. There's a bunch of books for them we haven't read. So we're trying to put one here, and then maybe in 5 weeks or something we'll do another one. You know, so we're trying to pepper those in along with these mystery books and crime thrillers that I've been reading. And then also, if there's anything you guys want to hear us read about that maybe we missed or we don't know, or manga and stuff, we're trying to pick some manga for the next couple of weeks, just because we haven't done one for a while. So if there's anything, you know, feel free to email us at planestransandcomicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com. And then also, if you guys like my Matt's mini-series with Swamp Thing, I am starting under our Ko-fi, our support page, ko-fi.com/planestransandcomicbooks. Under that page, which is in the link tree under the notes and all that stuff. All our links are in it. All the description pages and all that stuff. So if you go to that and go to our support page, it will be for one of the tiers. I don't know exactly how much it's going to be yet, but not super expensive or anything. It's just going to be Matt's minis for the Hellblazer series. I'm going to read all of Hellblazer in continuity with Swamp Thing. So if you already listened to Swamp Thing and you wanted to know what happens to Hellblazer at the same time,
you get this.
Each month, I'm going to read Hellblazer, you know, at the same time, and that way you will know what's going on in both, and until they end, basically. So I'm going to read all 300 issues of Hellblazer.
What he's saying is Matt's put a lot on his plate, but he's excited to read them all.
I love Hellblazer. I mean, if I got to do something, it better be Hellblazer and Swamp Thing, you know? So good stuff. And then also I got another one coming out that I'm thinking about doing, or I'm saving up for those issues. So I'm doing Spawn. I'm going to do Spawn cast under me and John are thinking about, we're going to work on this series called the Extreme 90s Comics.
Yeah.
Which are all about the Extreme 90s Comics. You know,
lots of pockets, lots of
lots of pouches. Lots of swords with two blades for no reason, and guns that don't make sense. So, and small ankles.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do series that like probably should be forgotten, that were like ridiculously extreme for no reason. Like everybody's got a mech suit and, you know, pouches, but it's like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. So like, or Thor, where he's got his long ponytail and metal. He looks like Judas Priest or something, but like stuff like that. We're gonna do series like that, and part of that series, I've already started recording my part of that, which is Spawn. I'm doing starting to read Spawn. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna do all Spawn, but I'm gonna read Spawn until maybe it's not cool anymore, or no one's listening to it, or whatever, or I get bored with it. But I've started with Spawn. I've already got like 5 issues of that recorded, so that'll be part of it'll also be a separate tier as part of the like Extreme 90s comics. So nice. If that sounds fun to you at all, it'll just be a fun series where we kind of make fun of it, laugh, maybe find out, maybe this shit isn't as bad as we thought, which surprisingly, Spawn, fucking pretty solid comic. For if that came out nowadays, I would buy it. So yeah, it'll be pretty fun if you are all interested in that. But with that being said, be sure to check out all our stuff on YouTube, Twitter,
Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, we got all our links out on there, and we have other stuff coming down the pipeline too. So don't miss out.
Yeah, and we will see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.